To Slow News Day Live. My name is Steve Poikinen. This, I suppose, is take two. Um, we had a little bit of tech problems here, but I think we're good to go now. So once again, please let me reintroduce the man, the host of Mi Casa, SU Casa with Niko House. Man, Niko, let's try for round two.
Sounds good, man. What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Um, And first off, man, thank you for being a part of the beginning of the Free Assange Vigil series. Like
Oh
that
no,
that
it's my pleasure.
that's good, solid stuff. We were talking off camera a little bit um about self censorship and about having our streams messed with and about just kind of what it's like when you make a point to deliver news outside of the narrative. And I thought maybe we could revisit that a little bit, but not without
Mhm.
kicking around TYT first, because I feel like this should be done.
Why would you think I would want to do something like that? I don't
Yeah,
understand.
I feel like it's a mutual. Why would we want to do something like that? Because they're just a deeply cynical, disingenuous grift network posing as the quote unquote home of the progressives, I think is what bothers me.
They are the original grift. They, figure out a way to. They knew that obviously, um, you can't be, especially for Jank. Like it's hard to be a Republican, even if you're Eastern European, and try and do what he did, like without a major backing right out the gate, and then even be successful doing it. Because like we already know, like there's a specific niche. You're allowed to be a minority in that, but you got to be a tool of some white guy
Right.
that's ahead of it all. You know what I'm saying? Like a Candace Owens with Charlie Kirk or Anna
Yeah.
Paulina with Charlie Kirk or something like that. But with Jank, like he left the man, and that's one thing that I think that people misconstrue about TYT. They keep calling them independent media. When Jank came from MSNBC, Anna came from I don't think it was MSNBC. I think it was either NBC or ABC, but
Yeah.
he was mainstream as well. Jordan Sheraton, when he was there, worked for Fox News, which is little hint hint. Try to figure out how many times Jordan Sheridan covered the Israel-Palestine conflict and get back to me.
Right.
Um, the I mean, if like you go down the list, they were either with mainstream, they were producing for mainstream, and now it's even worse because you have a cost after they got that 20 million. People don't understand, like with venture capitalism, your business structure completely changes. So in other words, when they took that money, Jenk was no longer in charge. They put a CEO to handle the business relations. They have an entire board at that point. And even Stephen O wasn't in charge of the content and things like that. They have to
Yeah.
go through a channel. And you could see how that, you know, once again, we're talking about self-censorship. So maybe they don't agree with everything that they're being told to put out, but they also know what will get approved and what won't get approved. They know what path lies before them. And if they want to achieve whatever ultimate goal they have, which I personally believe is getting in the White House, which is why I believe they're pushing Warren. And I also firmly believe that's why they're allowing Emma to basically tank their reputation.
Oh yeah. No, I've been saying basically since they started their pro Warren turn, that pivot to where, yeah, they'll say nice things about Bernie Sanders. If they ever mention Tulsi Gabbard, it's to smear her. And then everyone else they treat like a milquetoast centrist. But that pivot, I've been saying since then that like it's gonna come down to Emma and Anna having a fucking cat fight on set over who gets to be Warren's press secretary if they can get her in the White House.
Yeah, actually, and that's a brilliant way to put it, because what people don't understand is that like TYT, and I can't really reveal how I know this for a fact, but there were at least as of a month or so ago, were hemorrhaging money. They're absolutely hemorrhaging memberships. We know that for a fact because everybody. I mean, you go look at my comment section and see how often you see that. Now, imagine everybody who doesn't know where my channel is. So, like, last time I checked, they only had like 12,000 memberships for a 4 million subscriber channel. That's not a good look.
Right.
Um, you know what I'm saying? Like, you look at somebody like Kyle or Kyle at one point had 13,000 patrons by himself, right? So for you to have 4 million, that says something that people might be there to make to make fun of you. People could be there as a casual listener, or those are former subscribers who just never clicked unsubscribe.
Yeah.
So that when you're talking about like what the angle is, you kind of have to wonder, because like you said, it isn't just the propping up of Warren, it's the constant attacking of Tulsi, who they know. There is no debate that Tulsi is more progressive than Warren. It's not even close. At the very bare minimum, even if it was close as far as who was quote unquote more progressive, there is no competition as far as who has more conviction to carry out the progressive agenda.
Right.
So why are you going out of your way to create the little 2-minute, 3-minute segments attacking Tulsi? But then you create the same segments talking about how we should understand Elizabeth Warren's evolution, and that it's okay if she waffles on Medicare for all. It's okay if she waffles on the most important domestic topic of our time, because like, I'm sure she won't do that with anything else. Like that, there's no logic there. I remember Emma did a video trying to respond to Fiorella and the viral tweet that she put out about all the people who have donated Warren, who have propped up Warren, not being limited to, you know, CAP, Third Way, Goldman Sachs. I mean, there's a huge list. TYT was on the list. And Emma couldn't even find a legitimate critique, or excuse me, a critique of what Fiorella said. She just kept saying Warren is not a centrist. And then she tried to attack Tulsi, saying that Tulsi wasn't originally for Medicare for all, which actually isn't true. Tulsi didn't co-sponsor one Medicare for all bill, but also first iterations of sketchy legislation, she never co-sponsors, because she likes to do her research first. And so not even a year later, whenever they worked out the bugs on Conyers Medicare for all bill, she co-sponsored that one. And then of course, her and the Sanders Institute, they worked with Jaya Powell to get the bill that we see in the House and in the Senate. She co-sponsored that one too. And she's always advocated for universal health care. And she's not scared to say the words Medicare for all. So, and I don't have to wonder about her conviction, because I know that I was at Standing Rock. She was there too. I know that I was at that convention, not only for Bernie Sanders, but to stand up to the rigging. She was there too. You know what I'm saying? Like, after everything popped off, she didn't go blame Russia. She said our election integrity system is the problem, or else we wouldn't even have to have this conversation. It wouldn't matter what the hell Russia tried to do. So if you want to be, you know what I'm saying? So that's what's weird, not weird, but I guess the most sketchy part of the entire situation with TYT and Warren.
Well, I mean, it's a slow or I get maybe not slow. It's the transition of corporate media to the internet. And when I refer to Jink on Twitter, I call him cable news on the internet guy.
Yeah, cable news on the internet guy. I like that.
I mean, because he is, and he didn't get fired from MSNBC because he was some sort of you know, fire breathing progressive.
I think it was one disagreement.
He got pissed off that he got bumped to Saturday.
Yeah.
And that
he claims it was because of a disagreement on something he had said in the previous segment.
And he may have said something that rubbed an advertiser the wrong way, but he was more offended about being bumped Saturday and having that Joy Reid slot than he was anything else, and that led to him going and seeking more money to blow up TYT.
Yeah.
It was a vanity thing. It wasn't a principles thing.
Thank you. And I think that's the part that people need to understand. Whenever I'm trying to explain to people, like when I dichotomize what I like to call the neoliberal light left versus the actual left, I like to explain to people that it's you can see it's almost straight down the middle. Kyle is in the middle. I like Kyle, really nice guy. I don't always agree with him, but I believe that from his perspective, he feels he's giving a fair analysis most of the time. And to the left of him, you'll have people like myself, Pasta Fiorella, Jimmy Dore, you guys, even probably Jamaro a little bit, Tim Black, you know, activists, people who gave up what they were doing to do this. You get what I'm saying? Like, I do. I can tell you at least 2 or 3 of those people I just named gave up 6-figure jobs to start from scratch because or Tim gave up his radio show, which was based off of pop culture, to do this
Mhm.
instead, because the like people are asking him like, man, can you please say something about what's happening in the system in 2016? And so in myself, I gave up law school to do this. And I would have been comfy as I would have made more money in law school than most people make in 2-3 years of working, because I had a full ride and then some. And I gave it up for this. And to the right of them, you have the Sam Cedars, who like I always joke, I'm like, damn, maybe I need to dumb down my show, because clearly that's the new wave, right? I mean, I listened to this man try and convince the world that if you said it was rigging in 2016, that you're like Alex Jones. I'm like, I mean, I said, is Elizabeth Warren Alex Jones? Is Tom Perez Alex Jones? Is Donna Brazile Alex Jones? Because they all said that there was rigging that took place.
Yeah.
They
Well,
backtracked once their masters called in, but you know.
we've got WikiLeaks.
Yeah.
You know, there's no, you can't look at an outlet with 100% accuracy that's never had to retract anything that they've ever printed
Whose
and
documents
go,
are administrable in court and have been administered in court
yeah.
hundreds of times.
But you can't look at that and then go, the primary wasn't rigged. Or if you think the primary was rigged, you're Alex Jones. What that is it's, I mean, of course it's
Gaslight,
dismissive and it's propaganda, but what it is it's training his audience to react that way, to react to information outside of the way that he's presenting it or the official narrative, as if someone says this clearly demonstrable thing, they're Alex Jones.
Yeah, that's exactly what he's trying to do. And it's easier for the audience to absorb that and internalize it, because it's quite honestly, the majority of the country is lazy. And when you admit that the Democratic Party did participate in the rigging that we know took place, then all of a sudden you put the onus not only on the people but yourself to address it every single time it happens. And to, if you are good at your job, which he's not, but if you are good and you're trying to do things, and because remember his whole shtick is, oh, we're trying to unite the left and beat the Republicans and Donald Trump. But then it's your job to say, well, the Democratic Party isn't putting us in the best position to achieve that goal. So now we have to challenge them in a constructive and productive way. And that might mean I have to get out of my comfort zone, or more importantly, they're not going to put me in position to make the money I make now. And so they, that's what he does. He manufactures consent. He conditions his supporters. He says things like, oh man, what did he say the other day? I want to say he said something about Maduro the other day, in Venezuela. And I just like wanted to jump through the screen and choke him out, because I'm like, bro, because, as a veteran, man, like all I think about is all the people that I know that didn't enlist for any reason, but they just wanted to finally have some type of foundation and stability in their lives, right? And the military was the only way to get that. And now you want to send those people, huh?
I said, I can see that.
Yeah, and you see a lot. You're gonna have a situation where those people who join because of the fucked up circumstances that America has put them in, then get put in a position to get bullets fired at them because of another fucked up position that America put them in. So, like when I hear people flying off the handle about like manufacturing consent, and because I understand my history, like I get infuriated. One of the few times I get infuriated, like I deal with stupid people online all day when it comes to it's politics, kind of part of the job, especially when you're a Tulsa supporter. But when you're talking about manufactured consent, like what Bernie said about Venezuela, people were getting mad at me because they're like, oh, well, he's fighting against the MIC and the deep state and da-da-da. I'm like, okay, so all that's true. First of all, he's not the only progressive doing that. So why is it that Tulsa can call them out, but he can't? Oh, well, Tulsa doesn't have a chance to win. Well, why is that? Well, because she's getting cheated. We know, okay, so if Tulsa's getting cheated, why can't Bernie get cheated again?
Right.
Because I've seen how this story plays out. And if you weren't involved in 2015, 2016, maybe you think these numbers are new. These numbers aren't new. They might be a little bit higher, but the votes were there last time.
They were.
Excitement was there last time. Record high number in registrations last time. We won the convention not once, but twice. Twice before we ever stepped foot in that convention center when they did the initial votes that morning. They still took it away. We had, I mean, damn, bro, the protest outside were bigger than the damn convention itself.
Yeah. Yeah.
And for some reason, people think that, oh, if we just the numbers this time, if we the super dog, I'm like, bro, why do you think they ran so many candidates? They know exactly what would allow Bernie to win or Tulsi to win. And they have been planning against that this entire time. And yet people want to pretend like it's the numbers that are going to help Bernie win. Now, the numbers only help him win this time so much as like Tulsi fucking took out Kamala. She's done. Biden quite literally might not make it to the primary election. And so all he'll have to do is compete against Elizabeth Warren. That's what it's looking like. Buttigieg can't move anywhere. He has a keen ability to exist without anybody remembering he exists until he opens his mouth, and then you immediately forget anything he says. I'm pretty sure he said something to piss me off the last debate, and I still don't remember what it is because he's just that not important. So like, it's Bernie has an advantage in that sense, but like, if they want Warren, they will get Warren.
They have unlimited ways to get her.
And the way you do, well, I was gonna say the way you stop that from happening is by applying pressure now. You let them know we see you, and we are telling you, you will get Donald Trump again, and none of y'all motherfuckers will have jobs. Your party funding will cease to exist because at the end of the day, as much shit they like to talk, they still need the constituency.
Yeah.
If I'm a donor, I just pay the Republicans so much that you can't win.
There's at least got to be. I have not seen evidence that we have free and fair elections in this country. I don't see any reason why the 2021 would be ran in that manner. But they do need the dog and pony show for the reality of it, for it to be, like at least recognizably legitimate enough to keep people from grabbing the fucking pitchforks.
Exactly.
And that's where the constituents come in. But we know, I explained to people just yesterday at this goddamn wedding I was at, somebody was like, I like Elizabeth Warren. Why do you like Elizabeth Warren? I like what she has to say.
What does she have to say?
What's she have to say? We should get the money out. And I like that she doesn't take money. And I'm like, do you realize that you are 100% repeating a politician's stump speech that in no way, shape, or form has any bearing in reality?
Or the propagandists who start off every question with, Warren, this is what you want to do, right? Right? Like Bernie, right? Oh man, what was hilarious is during the debate when Amy Klobuchar challenged Bernie on something that she was actually absolutely wrong about, saying that it got rid of private healthcare, or she was trying to insinuate that it completely got rid of private healthcare, which is untrue. Although that's a whole different discussion with Bernie, because he keeps saying that it is true, but it's not. But so they were like, oh wow, Warren, what's your response to that? I'm like, hold the fuck up. What just happened? You just asked, she looked at Bernie, talked to Bernie, use his damn little, his lines. She said, well, Bernie, you wrote the damn bill, but I read the damn bill. And their immediate response is, let's ask Warren about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the biggest damn clue. But remember, a lot of the people who wanted Hillary to win only wanted her to win because she was a woman, and they felt like there was no other, popularity-wise, there was no other option. And so they're like, well, if we can get a woman, that's fine. I'm perfectly fine with that. I don't care about anything else. A lot of people
Warren's
felt like that.
Little hype girl is running around shouting Kamala Harris's slogan to Warren supporters, and they're doing the "It's time for a woman in the White House" thing, and nobody in goddamn Mockingbird media is going, hey, she just ripped off a black woman's slogan, and nobody seemed to care. Like, nobody batted an eye at that.
Kamala is finding out the very, very hard way. Something that, unfortunately, a lot of people in black media, black politics, and even the black establishment find out is, you're, as a black woman especially, you're as useful to the establishment as what they can get out of you. Once they realize, and that's not just for black, that's for women in general, that's for minorities and the marginalized. You're as used to the Democratic establishment for, as much as they can get out of you. They can't get anything out of Kamala at this point. What's the point of having a black woman? Even if, her record's shitty, but what's the point of having a black woman if you can't even get more than 2% of the black vote now?
Right. No, Kamala Harris is perfectly positioned to win identity politics bingo every time she walks into a fucking debate, every time she holds a town hall. She could be, and I think she fought against her own identity to pursue her careerism.
She did.
That
Well, and she
that
mostly
there
identified with her Indian side. Funny enough.
Yeah, but, like, to the point to where, though, when you go on the fucking Breakfast Club and you're like, "Oh, yeah, man, I burned in '86 when fucking Snoop's album dropped." Like,
Yeah.
you're just you're doing, well, first of all, you're doing your campaign a disservice, but, like, to a larger extent, you're doing your community a disservice because you walked into what should have been a fucking friendly environment to have a decent chat, and you fucking spent the whole time lying to kick it, and there's fucking, like, all of your bullshit is easily fact checked within a matter of seconds, and you're gonna do that to Charlemagne the God?
Yeah, it's true. And what's even worse, I think, is this disservice that Charlamagne the God is doing to the Black community.
Yeah.
After you see how disingenuous she is, you then go on to prop her up, and apparently, which I haven't seen it, but a lot of people ask me to cover it. I just literally there's so much I have to cover. I didn't get a chance to. But Charlamagne apparently attacked Tulsi to defend Kamala. So Charlamagne the God did. And when once again and Robbie was the one who broke this information, you find out that they're all connected to the UTA CAA little talent agency group. Kamala is, and Kamala's at the guy's wedding, at
Yeah.
UTA's executive's wedding, along with the biggest players, and not only in our politics but around the world, including Elizabeth Warren, by the way. And Charlamagne the God belongs to it, and so does Kamala. And so they're like, hey, you want more political, because there's a lot of money in politics now. People like on the media side and the commentary side and the analysis, that's just becoming more popular than sports is in some areas. There's about to
Oh,
be
yeah.
Politicon, or Politicon's coming up in Nashville. The last time I checked, they had like 10,000 tickets already sold, and that was a month ago, early. Like in like 1,000, 2,000 VIPs sold. Like it was crazy. And it's like that was a month ago. So imagine what it's going to look like now that they've announced the lineups. So there's money to be made if you can blend the pop culture with the politics, and a lot of people are catching on to that, and they're taking advantage of those people who want to benefit off of that and be taken more seriously. Also, because I think Charlamagne the God wants to be taken more seriously. Doesn't want to do the work to be taken more seriously, though. It seems like. But yeah,
Well,
I
why
think
do the
that's
work
important.
when you can just read the talking points off your fucking email every morning, and because you're a talent, because you have the ability to, get your lines down and deliver them right, why bother doing all the how much time do you spend researching, man? Because I know for me it's
Woo!
like hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. And
I'm better at it now. I'm better at it so that if I can target, like I need to know something specifically, and like the story around it. Like that's actually how I got in my show, was like finding information from seemingly innocuous facts and being able to connect things back to like what we're dealing with today. And so I spend on a depending on how large or small the topic is, I could get a an hour worth of research, like for my video, done in 15 minutes.
yeah,
But now there's a caveat. That's now because of how much research I've done already. And back in the day, 3, 4, 5 hours a day minimum. Like
I
that was like
fall
a
into this
average day.
I fall into this trap, and I'm gonna totally blame Whitney Webb for it. Um, because because this is how her reporting works. Like, there's almost always a couple of books connected to whatever the quote is. So I will then go find the book and bury myself in the book and see what else I can pull from out of the book in order to add to it. But mostly what I've been doing lately is just going straight to the fucking documents if they exist, and
That's the
absorbing the
best way.
document, removing the fucking spin that happens from the White House lawyer's office, or the fucking or Reuters or AP or whatever, that everybody else absorbs and then repeats the spin. And even a lot of lefty media, like, their show relies on the official narrative. and it's just pointing
Exactly.
a finger to the official narrative and going,
And
this
that's
is
it, really.
pardon?
That's literally all it is. It's just
And that's
pointing a
it.
finger. They might add one or two facts, with some graphics, and then call it news or analysis. And I'm like, man, the definition of an analysis is just greatly diminished since 2014, 2015. And what the way I do it, and it's not everybody can do this because you kind of have to have a certain amount of experience. And when you do this for as many hours a day as I've done over the last 3 to 4 years, it just becomes easier. I like work backwards from my conclusion because I probably already know the answer because the patterns are so evident at this point,
Yeah.
that if you know your history, like I remember me and a friend were talking about Emma, and I said, you know what's funny? I can almost guarantee that Emma has a connection politically that's what kept her at TYT when everybody else got fired. Because to be quite honest with you, she was one of the lesser talented ones.
Straight up.
And I'm being honest, like her analysis was always below average. Like, and her delivery was even lower than that. So it wasn't like she was giving great analysis and but her delivery was just so on point that you keep her. Like, and some people perceive like Anna for being that, for example. Or the other side of that, whereas John Idarola's analysis was considered more in depth at one point, but he was boring as hell. But
Yeah.
his analysis was so good they kept him. This isn't Emma. Emma's boring as hell. Her analysis is trash. And I mean, like I said, she's just not an excitable person, but they kept her anyway. And so we operated from, and then what we realized, her propping up Warren, and then all of a sudden, like literally all of the sudden,
Yeah.
attacking Tulsi after she had nothing but praise for her. It was like there's something going on where they think there's like a play on the field that you can see that it's coming, but you don't know what it is yet until you figure out where it's connected. So I had him like look up, I was like, well, who's Warren's family connected to? And we found out some crazy stuff. Like she's in the elites. She's in the elite of the elites.
Yeah.
And like to make a long story short, because we're being patient with the information because we don't want to dox her family if it's not necessary.
Right.
Because not even necessarily because of her, but the vitriol towards TYT from the right that's somewhat undeserved. The violent vitriol. I mean, like I don't want anybody's family getting caught up in that just because their daughter or their niece or their nephew or whatever, the grandparents do stupid shit on that show. That's not fair to them. But if it ever came down to it and somebody ever questioned our integrity or our conviction, I'd drop that information so fast. Like, I mean, I gotta look out for myself and my fam first. You know what I'm saying? And
For
in the
real, no.
movement.
I mean, you do. It's a family first kind of atmosphere. But that's fascinating. I know that Emma Vigeland went to a high dollar private school. I know that she went to a high dollar university. I know that she's I haven't actually looked into her family, but I would not be surprised to find the bluest of bloods
Oh
involved in it.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You're right
And
though, man.
still
She's
a part of the
boring.
New York establishment.
Yeah, she's boring. She gives crap analysis. She's there. I mean, it's like she got put into an intern position and everybody knew that once she showed up, it was going to be a grooming process and she was going to use TYT as a stepping stone into either a major media career or a political career. And I think that bears out through TYT's sort of business model with starting PACs left and right and trying
Mm-hmm.
to be as involved in politics as they are in reporting on it, which is such a fucking weird conflict of interest that
The way they're doing it, yeah, because they only exclusively work with the Democratic Party.
right, right. And the whole Justice Democrats thing, I've been saying forever that the Justice Democrats as a PAC and as candidates aren't there to wrest the power away from Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer. They're there to inherit it. And
Yeah.
more often than not, you see that bear out in their votes. You see it bear out when they have to make a public statement like AOC did the other day, where she put that fucking tweet out and it said, it was when John Bolton got
Bolton
fired.
tweet.
Trump stands with Kim Jong-un in the firing of John Bolton, and she circles
Right.
Trump stands with Kim Jong-un and says, "That's it. That's the headline. I'm Democratic Socialist Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I stand with the imperialist fucking blue wave motherfuckers and the neocons that fund them."
Defer to the caucus, man. What you talking? You got to defer to the caucus. That's
Yeah.
what she does, and it's crazy because I'm like, bro, there is nothing but celebrations to be had with John Bolton gone. There are very few people that can take over and get away with what he's gotten away with, that has the connections and the lineage that he has. John Bolton he was nothing short of an evil man. I don't know. And there's no, like, you're gonna try to, instead of celebrating this, I'm like, that's a victory for the left in any capacity. We can debate whoever the next person is gonna be. We can debate that when it happens. But right now, we know that John Bolton was trying to start World War III today. You know what I'm saying? We know that John Bolton was trying to take over Venezuela today. That he was trying to get us to invade Iran today. That he was trying to get, like it's we don't. So at least if we prevent World War III for another 2 months, that's a fucking victory. Because with John Bolton, it may have come much sooner.
John Bolton has a super PAC. Did you know that?
Did not know that. That's weird.
Yeah, I'll send you the thing. He's got this whole information packet put together on psychological profiles of potential voters and how to best manipulate it. Like, that's his PAC information sheet. It's fucking wild. I'll send that to you.
Well, John Brennan's was in charge of a disinformation campaign. Seymour Hersh, released that information.
Right now, DARPA, like I did a show on this a week or so ago. DARPA is gonna eradicate fake news within 4 years.
That's what they said their goal is, with their little technology.
Which just sounds like, I told that to my buddy this morning that I'm helping move, and he's like, so DARPA is going to print the yellowest journalism on the planet, and that's going to be the only journalism that counts as journalism. And I'm like, you got it, dude.
Try that. See how it works out for you, bruh. Look at what happened. I judge the capacity of the government, like, to do shit like that on the capacity of what, like, the tools have been able to get away with. So Google has been able to get away with a lot for a long time. We know, like, that's their bread and fucking butter right now. All of the like, a lot of their investments from In-Q-Tel, and like, they use Google for everything, whether it's Google Maps when they brought on Jeff Bezos for that, right? They YouTube everything. Because it's easy. Despite what people think, like, there are ways to take these people down, but it has to be coordinated, and that's what people don't get. Like, and they all have umbrellas. Everybody does.
Oh, yeah.
Google is that, or Alphabet, I guess would technically be what's called, but Google would be that umbrella. So now, when you have enough political pressure on Google from both the left and the right, because now both sides are starting to feel like, hold up. So basically, depending on what these little people want, that's going to determine whether or not the narrative I need to get elected is going to fly. Like, even if it's not the truth, or even if it is the truth, like, in both the left and the right, it's become a political thing. So all the DAs, 50 DAs around the country, are like, fuck that. You didn't give us a choice.
Yep.
Like, you didn't give us a choice. So, and now that it's political, and my career is now reliant on this shit, on Google paying consequences. Now shit gets done, right? Because now it's the entirety of the DA corps in the country versus the 2 or 3 people who want to see Google have a monopoly. And generally, that's always worked to our benefit whenever it gets political between the powers that be, because they know that we're watching. So that's the type of pressure we got to continue to put on Google. I don't find it, once again, it's not a coincidence that Tulsi sues for $50 million. So you have a presidential candidate. You have those people, the 50 U.S. I think it's U.S. attorneys. Yeah, so it's 50 U.S. attorneys from the various states except for California, it's California and one more, and then Puerto Rico and D.C. are the other 2 to account for 50. And then you have Zach, who dropped the Google documents, caught the Google CEO literally perjuring himself, saying that there's no blacklist. Turns out there is one, amongst a lot of other things. You got the YouTubers from both the left and the right, and there's the purely entertainment side, all suing YouTube right now.
Yeah.
So
Well,
Google
there's
is
that,
getting
and
hit
there's
from all
also we
sides.
talk about there's also a YouTube content creators union that
Yep,
just
that's happening too. And they look like they have, and they're backed by a bigger union that has lawyers to argue on their behalf. And you can't just give them the runaround like you would a regular YouTuber. Like, you want to play the whole let's dismiss and continue and dismiss and continue, and they'll play it right along with you. That's what union lawyers are fucking fantastic at dealing with. So like, they're in a position right now where they can't outspend every single party looking to hold them accountable, to such a degree that even recently they've been trying to be a little bit more generous when it comes to the demonetization process and the algorithms and things like that. Not the Tulsi though; they've been trying to screw over Tulsi, but in other aspects they have been.
Do you think that voting in a rigged system inside a duopoly is a realistic avenue for substantive change?
It's not the main, it's not like Main Street, but it's an avenue you still have to entertain, not because you're like confident that your vote's going to count, but because we're almost certainly confident that our vote will not count, and therefore we need to be accountable. We need people to be able to say, I put my vote here, it did not go the way it was supposed to, and we need accountability for that. If we don't have that, Jill Stein doesn't make the strides that she made in holding our election system accountable, and we don't have verified voter paper ballots in Pennsylvania now,
Yeah.
amongst the other lawsuits that we have. So not in a traditional sense. I do believe that basically some cities are better than others. Some states are obviously better than others.
I think you
But
can have an impact at the local level. I think that to a
more
degree
so, yeah.
you can have an impact at the state level. Although here in California, that may be
Yeah.
just fucking so far out of the reach of the average person that nothing short of surrounding Sacramento, Hollywood, and San Francisco at the same time would make an impact.
Yeah, y'all have too much impact on the outcome of democratic politics in general.
Yeah.
So they don't leave that up to chance. Or
Oh,
else Kim oh my goodness, I cannot remember her name now. The one who was trying to run for the chair of the Democratic Party, Kimberly
all right.
Ellis, the one they
Yeah.
loved. They loved her when she was playing for their team, and then she kind of pulled a Tulsi on them. She was like, "Oh, y'all full of shit." That all
Yep.
of a sudden she couldn't, even though she had all the support. I was at the convention. She probably won. Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah. No, California will be the first state to promote their high-minded liberal ideals while also having a homeless population that is now larger than the entire state of Rhode Island.
Yep. Yep. And that's why I get so upset when people say, well, look at California. I say, it's crazy. This is what money in politics does. California had a bunch of fantastic ideas. They weren't, it wasn't like they were, if it was allowed to, if it was allowed to unravel the way they were supposed to, a lot of the things that we're seeing in California now wouldn't have happened. But what happens is about 1/4 or about half of the way through the process, lobbyists come in and they water down the policies. They, even with marijuana, I'm really glad that marijuana became legalized, but now you got what happening? You have the feds can walk into your shit anytime they want to. You have the business. I know Posse and Fiora covering Pasadena. They're putting all these stupid regulations on you, that they know you can't afford to battle, but they know that because the corporations are paying them to put these regulations on because they can afford, because they're going to get the subsidies. So they don't even have to pay for the regulations.
I've been
So
saying this forever, man. Only California could fuck up selling weed. That's just, I mean,
even Colorado isn't going through the shit that California is going through when it comes to
hell
that.
no. What we did here, and I fought against this, and I tried to raise awareness about it, and here in my community, I was writing article after article in the local paper. It's like a monthly that comes out, but residents only. I was going to every city council meeting. I was going to every there was a meeting of collective owners and growers that would meet once a month. I was going to that regularly, really trying to raise awareness about what was happening with this horrible piece of legislation. And the corporatization of cannabis, and the fact that this particular community where I live in the Santa Cruz Mountains has sustained itself on the cannabis industry since the 70s, late 60s. Like it's our cash crop. It's our largest cash crop here. And there's some agriculture that happens here. Fucking Lockheed Martin is right up the road.
That's not good.
No, it's not. In fact, that's why my stream with Cynthia McKinney was getting fucked with so bad, I would imagine. But what they did here is that they choked out all of the small and medium farmers that have been in these mountains for generations now. Because they made they structured it to where you have to be X amount of feet away from another house. You have to be X amount of feet away from your house. It's ridiculous the conditions upon which you're supposed to follow if you're going to grow. So they choked everybody out. And now it's back to the fucking camp days where the state bird in Boulder Creek is no longer going to be the pit bull. It's going to be the fucking black helicopter. Our state bird here is the pit bull. It is. And our state flag is a flannel shirt.
Really?
But yeah, the Boulder Creek Free State, man. I'm so close to San Jose. I'm so close to San Francisco. And this is like stepping out of time into straight up fucking lumberjack days, or it used to be until Silicon Valley gentrified the fuck out of us about 5 years ago.
Yeah, that sounds about right. We're actually on the impetus of a Silicon Valley takeover out here in Miami too, and baking industry takeover as well. You know, we have so much land, and a lot of it was untapped, surprisingly, but it was untapped. And they even, and no offense to my white friends, but basically, if you're from South Florida, Fort Lauderdale was basically Miami for white people who didn't want to deal with Latinos. Yep. And they've made it a little bit more comfortable for the white elite to move in. And so you've been seeing the takeover to the degree that they wanted to justify selling high-end condos at expensive rates in the hood. So on paper, against the advice of the city planner, they made it so that like my neighborhood is quote unquote Coral Gables, even though technically I live in Little Havana. But white people are not going to move to a place called Little Havana when they're looking for houses on a little map or looking for condos on a little map. They're going to look for, Coral Gables. Oh, that's where University of Miami is. Let's check that out. And that's how it starts. Now businesses are getting priced out and all that good stuff. Oh shit! I just got a crazy update across my screen. Governor Andrew Cuomo just announced an emergency ban on all flavors of e-cigarettes, excluding tobacco and menthol.
Oh, see, we're losing menthol here too. California did that. California is getting rid of all flavored tobacco. It's just going to including menthol, which fucking pisses off like half the people I know that smoke.
What's funny is I feel like y'all have like the opposite problem. Y'all making so much money off of marijuana that the tobacco industry is a nuisance. But like with New York, I'd imagine it's kind of the opposite. The tobacco industry is trying to fight, because you gotta remember how much money the tobacco industry and specifically the state of New York make off of cigarettes and tobacco. Bruh, their taxes on tobacco are so fucking high, but then the companies get subsidized by the state, so it doesn't matter. They all make out like bandits. So like,
I haven't bought a pack of smokes in New York since 2001.
My brother bought one, and he said, I remember we went, he said, boy, if I lived in New York, I'd quit smoking, I swear to God. He said, he didn't smoke the entire time because of that. He ran out of cigarettes about a day in, and he was like, yeah, I'm not buying another pack of cigarettes. That's insane. It's like $11 or $12 for a pack of Newports up there. But that's what we're dealing with, right? They come up with this bullshit. 6 people died randomly, and of course the connections are as loose as you could possibly be. Like we don't even know if it was the e-cigarettes, or them. Something within them that the e-cigarettes triggered. And I'm like, bruh, y'all have how many alcohol-related deaths a year? And ain't no emergency.
Yeah. Pharmaceutical overdoses. There's a fucking healing plant that can do a lot of what a lot of these pharmaceuticals do. And that's called cannabis, but because of the way that our country works, that's still a Schedule 1 narcotic. But fucking Oxycontin, you can still prescribe that. You can, yeah, the vape juice thing, the e-cigarette juice thing, that kills me because that's like kratom too, they're
Kratom. Yeah, I actually
yeah,
love Kratom.
so do I. I finally found a reliable place where I can order it online, and it's fucking
It's dope.
like
If you have
one.
ADHD or anxiety, Kratom is fantastic for you.
Yeah,
Depending on how
it,
extreme your ADHD is, though, it may not give you the I call it the head energy. Basically, like it gets rid of my anxiety, but because I have like such an extreme form of ADHD, I still have to take like a 10 milligram Adderall sometimes to kind of like get me awake. But bro, it
okay,
helps out with headaches. You think you got the flu? Take some Kratom. All
yeah,
the symptoms will be gone. Not even joking.
yeah, yeah. No, it helps me with it's like when ibuprofen isn't cutting it, and I need to kick out the body pain that I have every day. It does great for that. Yeah, no, I used to drink a lot. Now I don't. Um, and I've read that kratom has been used to help people transition off of alcohol and other drugs. It does react
Mm-hmm.
with your opioid receptors without itself being an opioid.
It
It's
does.
fantastic. It's a fantastic subject. And yeah, every time,
That's why they're trying to Schedule 1 it.
every year, every year they try to do it, and every year people pop out of the woodwork for it, which is fascinating. But they do the same with the cigarette juice, the vape juice. A couple of people die, and they do whatever they can to try and make it related to this substance.
I'd
Because
be interested to see what their what the tobacco industry lost in sales in New York with the vaping industry. I think that they got killed
oh
these
yeah,
last couple of years. That's probably what they finally got there. Because what when did the quarter end? I'd imagine, if I'm guessing correctly, it's probably right around now that the
yeah,
quarter ended, and
yeah.
they're like, well, a matter of fact, I'm gonna Google it right now since we're here anyway. I'm gonna Google it right now. My Google works pretty fast. See, I'm using Google. Google, don't silence me. When does the financial quarter end? September 30th. So,
Okay.
yep, it's about to coming on the end of it. The last one ended in June, so we're coming on the end of the quarter, and it's probably not looking that good. And you'd be surprised how often things like this happen
Oh
right at the
no,
end of a quarter or right at the
Coca-Cola
beginning
sent
of a new
fucking
one.
death squads to fucking clear out people who were trying to unionize it down in Latin America. They're on a sugar plantation. This is years ago,
Wow.
but if the Coca-Cola company can fucking hire mercs to go take out union organizers, I absolutely believe that the tobacco industry would try and fucking do whatever they can to pin any kind of death on vape juice or any of the e-cigarettes or anything. It's like
Vape juice.
we have economic hitmen that operate internationally, but
Mm-hmm.
within individual corporations, they have their own squads of economic hitmen that will do whatever they can to discredit another product or a competitor, and do whatever they can to gain an advantage. It's how capitalism works.
You know what I want to talk about real quick? I know we don't have that much time, but I really want to talk about this Kashmir situation. Um, and I want to premise by saying I'm no by no means an expert on Indian politics, or Pakistani politics for that matter, or even Kashmir. I'm not going to pretend to be expert, but I am very well versed in history, and I am pretty well versed in just Southeast Asian, Middle Eastern politics, like in that relationship, that contentious relationship. And I want to just say that if you aren't surprised at how loudly these politicians are talking about Kashmir all of a sudden, and all of a sudden Modi is the Democrats' worst enemy. When Obama was in power, he was their best friend. Then you should probably be a little curious. You should be curious because we don't even have Pakistan, for example, on the state-sponsored terrorism watch list. We have Syria there. We have Iran there. we have, I mean, we don't have Saudi Arabia there, right? So you know what the list really is. It's a list of countries that we're about to invade. But Pakistan's never made that list. Now, Imran Khan, the prime minister, not like the guy who used to be the prime minister, not, you know, the guy from YouTube somewhere. This is the prime minister said we have 40,000 terrorists like accountable in Pakistan. Kashmir had been in shambles since forever, basically. Yeah. And yet, out loud, there are some politics on the ground familiar with the situation who actually did try to do something about it, but that's standing in the way of Pakistan because they have to keep that narrative alive that it's India's fault that Kashmir is the way that it is. So if they suffer from terrorist attacks in Pakistan, you'll never hear about it, except for the last time. But that's a whole complicated situation. Pakistan wasn't doing what we wanted them to do. And so all of a sudden the narrative became, oh, Pakistan might be a problem. We might have to, and then you notice they calm that shit down. So they probably started playing ball. But for the people to believe every single narrative about, like, for example, Modi, without actually looking at the history of our relationship with Modi, you can't do that. I don't know if Modi's a good guy or a bad guy as far as, like, I don't know him personally. He's a leader of a major power, and there's no completely and totally altruistic leader of a major power, like, ever. Like, it's not how the way the world works at this moment.
If you're a nuclear nation, you're not going to be electing some wide-eyed idealist.
Well, that was the problem. Now, I can say this, Modi is and was a wide-eyed idealist, and that was before he got to office, right? So he belongs to what their version of the Republican Party would be. But when people say, well, the BJP is bad, and I can't really argue one way or the other if they're a holistically bad or holistically good. I just know that they are a more conservative socially type of party. But I can say this. Does that mean that Tulsi is a fucking warmongering corporatist like the rest of the Democrats, or should we judge people on their policies? So, which is the question that comes next. Why are the policies of Modi never discussed? It's always the butcher of Gujarat. It's always, what about the Gujarat riots? It's always, well, he belongs to the BJP. It's always the BJP hates Muslims, or the BJP, smears Muslims, or XYZ. It's never he went into the election in 2 years into his president or his prime minister. He got 83% approval rating. Right now, even with all the drama going on, he still has a 74% approval rating. They put millions of toilets in a bunch of homes, and they're planning on putting 100%, having the 100% of the country with toilets in their home. First time ever India has had public bathrooms. They have a small business industry booming now, because if you have a small business, India will finance it 100%. The economy would be booming. And we come to find out that between 2014, right around the time he got elected, in 2019, guess who had the first largest rising economy in the world?
India. I guess the volume crapped out on this thing, and I don't know why.
Are you kidding? That's funny.
Yeah,
that's hilarious.
That's what the chat's saying. Let me see if I can pull Andrew back in. That's fucking wild. Hope he's there. Oh, okay. They say refresh and the sound's back.
Okay. So yeah, basically all we have to do is look at the context of the situation. Like I said, you don't have to believe that Modi is some altruistic savior. I don't ever, like I say, he's a leader. Like Assad, I don't know Assad well enough to say he's an altruistic savior, but I do know that his people elected him, and that's okay enough for me because it's not my fucking country. I know that we should.
Right.
I didn't elect Trump. I didn't elect Hillary. Does that mean I want somebody coming in and removing them for us? No, I'm a fucking U.S. citizen. I'm gonna do my job to get the person that I want in office, whatever that may be. And that's what we have to leave it up to the self-determination of every country. But when you don't talk about a man's policies, we should know as progressives, as leftists, That's a red flag out the gate. What do they do for Bernie? Bernie, when 2016, he's sexist. Well, what about universal health care? No. I don't think you heard me. He's a sexist bro who doesn't like black people. Okay? Do you not get that? So what about the policies? Don't worry about the policies with Tulsi, right? Well, she's a Hindu fascist. She's, this and that and da-da-da. Like, well, what about all the things that say otherwise? Fuck all that. Don't worry about that stuff over there. Look what I'm telling you to look. And so Kashmir, Pakistan, and India have been going through these issues for a very long time. People forget that Modi and the BJP, as far as the federal government, what we consider the federal government, they just got empowered. So why didn't we give a shit whenever the Congress Party was in charge and Prime Minister Singh was there? Well, Prime Minister Singh was a part of the establishment. If the Congress Party, who loves Muslims so much, right, that treats the minority there so well, that was so, they were so magnanimous to Kashmir, and apparently the relationship with Pakistan was so good, it wasn't really all that good. But like, why is it that everything was so shit that it got somebody like Modi elected, and now he had a 74% approval rating?
Right.
For addressing all the things that party, that is kind of like the version of our Democratic Party, where all they do is they pay lip service to the minorities. But just like our Democrat, the Congress Party is majority Hindu, just like Modi. But here's the thing, which is funny, and this is the part that people don't know: the smears about Modi, the original smears, you know who they came from? The GOP, because they were trying to use the evangelical tactics to convert people in Gujarat, which is one of the largest cities or provinces, in India, that Modi was in charge of, and he was the first to stand up to the colonials. That's where his love came in. And economically, he was transforming them with populist economics. And of course, capitalists, quote unquote, don't like that shit, because what comes next. If what he does works in Gujarat, the rest of India will follow. And if you have another superpower at play there, that's another country you got to, now we got to choose between India and Pakistan. Pakistan got all of our terrorists. India has all the money. What do we do? Because they don't like each other, and we the one who's created that dynamic. So so you introduce a whole host of issues if you allow Modi's populism to be, regardless of everything else, just economics. They don't give a shit about the racism. Even if he was racist, they don't give a shit about that. Our government, when the fuck do we ever give a shit about that type of stuff? It's all about economics. So then you have to once again ask, well, why do we care all of a sudden so much about Modi when 99% of Americans that are not Indian or Desi or from that region have no idea who Singh was before Modi even got there?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, we've got to have a good guy and a bad guy in order to establish that consent for playing Escaladio on the international stage. We've got to sell a narrative that this person is a monster, or this person is embattled and a victim, and we need to come to the rescue. And if we don't have that dynamic, then people are going to look into what the substance is. People are going to, try and be like, okay, or they're not going to care at all because it's a different fucking country and they should have their own goddamn agency.
Yeah, and and if you think that this shit has nothing to do with Tulsi and the ground she's gaining, I'm going to tell you, you have no idea how American politics work and how to identify who's the biggest threat to the establishment. Because when you're talking, you want to talk about swinging for the fucking fences at this point. You're hoping that America, not like our little microcosm of fucking, super engaged politicos on Twitter and Facebook and YouTube. You're hoping that the rest of America gives a shit about a country enough that they've in a leader that they've never heard of until 3 or 4 months ago to stop them from supporting the person who was the legitimate biggest threat that not only our establishment has seen, but you're talking about the same person who calls on Netanyahu and Saudi Arabia the exact same amount of times for the exact same reason, where she is not disillusioned by the false dichotomy of, like, I'll say this, she's partial towards Israel, but it's not because of money. It's because of how they condition you when you first get there, because they take you to Auschwitz. And so she saw that. And of course, that persuaded her to feel one way. And then she started getting more deals. And she's like, oh, this ain't all on up and up. Then she started calling on Netanyahu. Then she started realizing how much Saudi Arabia influences everything. And those are two sides of the fucking Middle Eastern coin. From sea to shining sea. You got Saudi Arabia, the sea, Israel, the shining sea, and they are supposed to control the narrative in one form or another in all the Middle East, and for our military-industrial complex, which obviously controls the petrodollar or influence the petrodollar. And if we call those two out, oh, best believe the dominoes are going to fall, and they're going to try to take you out, because they know that your domestic policy will soon follow, and it's way easier to stand up for domestic policy than it is for foreign policy. So if you're starting out calling out those two, then you're absolutely going to change things for domestic policy. And that means if we are not living in this constant state of desperation, this constant state of division, if we don't allow, like, and I think part of it's because she's Polynesian, so she's kind of out, and Hindu, so she's out of the bubble that we've all traditionally grown up in the continental US, because she was living in Hawaii. So like a lot of things that we dealt with her definition of racism when she was young, I'm sure it's completely different than ours. Like white people experienced that racism in Hawaii because of the colonization aspect, more than the Hawaiians do. So like the way she sees things is so different and unique. And with her culmination of experiences, it's fundamentally shaped how she's gone about her policies and her evolution to this point. And so they're literally, because like, once again, if you see the narrative, if you see it, it's because it's to harm you. If there was a legitimate issue, if there's a legitimate issue where it was really a kind of a controversial, you don't know what, not a clear side to take for whatever reason, we would never know about it. If U.S. interests were involved, it would never hit our news cycle. And yet,
100%. I had Jared Beck on like at the beginning of the year, and we had a whole conversation about manufactured consent. And the conclusion of that conversation, we agreed that consent had been manufactured decades ago, and if not by the
by Cecil Rhodes. Cecil Rhodes, for those of you who are familiar with the Rhodes Scholarship, it's created by a fucking evil human being who wanted Anglo supremacy.
Oh yeah.
He's the one responsible for South Africa. That was his first test to see if it could be done. That's why everybody there speaks with the British accent, and that's how the apartheid started and all that good stuff. I think he was like the first quote unquote governor or whatever you want to call it of South Africa. He formed this little circle, a little close, tight knit circle. And by the way, this is a conspiracy theory, bro. You can find this in the New York Times, 1902.
Rhodesia is named after him.
What is?
For fuck's sake, Rhodesia. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So he got with Rothschild, Lord Rothschild from Austria, and a few others in Great Britain. Also, he got with J.P. Morgan Chase here. And they figured they did know that if you want to have an Anglo dominant, and people need to understand that's not Western Europe. Anglo is different than like Germanic, which is different than like Slavic and different than Prussian. And it's like they have their own little mini beefs. And Anglos, obviously, if you know anything about the British Empire, clearly had a bone to pick with people who could stand up to them and challenge them economically. Germany, this is keep in context, this is during the Industrial Revolution. Germany was smoking Great Britain in German engineering, that's what they do. And they're the best at it. They were then, and I would say there's an argument that they're still that now. And they couldn't have that. So we worked together, we manufactured consent. This is where it started. The manufacturing of consent literally started with this little circle. We got Theodore Roosevelt, we bankrolled him. JP Morgan did. Bankrolled the Bull Moose Party to split the vote. I believe it was a Republican vote at the time. So that Woodrow Wilson's dumbass could get in power. He ran on not going to war. The moment that he ran on not going to war, because of course he was taking corporate money, should have known that motherfucker was going damn straight. That's his whole goal, was to go to war. They got him reelected, and all of a sudden, the marching orders were quite literally blame Germany for everything. Everything, which then we later found out, as a short example, the Lusitania was what sparked our entry into the war. And it turned
Which
out
was a false flag, by the way, for the people watching the show. That was a fucking false flag event. Lusitania was sunk by us.
Yeah, it was one, sunk by us. Two, it was a cargo ship. It was, and this is unclassified. You can fucking Google this shit. They literally lied to us to get us into a war. And of course, we now know that we crippled Germany's military. We destroyed their economy. And that was always the goal. We demonized them. We blamed them. We like, oh, those evil Germans, which of course led to what? The rise of Hitler, the rise of Nazism, the demonization of Jewish people, because Hitler knew that there was always that quote unquote anti-Semitism, at least very specifically in reference to the Rothschilds, because they had bankrolled every major war, and it's on record, and they're not shy about it. That's how they got that's how they got to where they were in Europe. So everybody had that lasting taste, and they just needed somebody to, and you're desperate. Think about, this is how fucked up our country is. Not only us, but the Western powers in general. This is how fucked up we are. We put people in a position they knew the rest of the world doesn't like us now. We're fucked. I can't even feed my children. This guy is offering us an option, but he's a fucking evil asshole too. But at least he's giving me an option to feed my fucking kids and restore some of my damn dignity. Those are the options we gave Germany and every German in Germany. And we had to pray that they navigated the right choice.
Right.
Nobody should have that option. Nobody. And that's what we did. And so and after World War I, we created that's how the Bush family got rich and started we started the war economy board. And that's how we literally use that process over and over and over. And that's why we're like, it's so easy to see it now, right? It's like, bro, we have 100 years of history. And when people ask me, well, what's the last justified war we fought? Bro, a lot of people say World War II. Technically, I guess it was justified, technically. But like, when you look at the roots, it should have never been started. And you can't fault the people back then. It was a little bit more difficult to stand up to propaganda then than it is now. But now, if you allow consent to be manufactured because you allow them to take advantage of your desperation, because that's what's happening. We're seeing this happen occur a lot in the Bernie camp. And don't get me wrong, they're absolutely right to feel desperate. I know people are hurting for healthcare. I know people are hurting. They're tired of seeing this criminal justice system as broken as it is. But with that being said, that desperation is how they've always taken advantage of us. And you have to be mindful of that when you're talking about when you want to attack somebody for rightfully critiquing Bernie. I just did a video day before yesterday, critiquing Tulsi, not even because of her being wrong necessarily on something, but because I knew how other people would take it. And because she didn't, it was about 9/11, and I know what she meant by what her words
just did.
So she redid it. You see, she reshot it. Guess why? Because everybody knows, as a staunch Tulsi supporter, somebody would even call me a surrogate, and I am when necessary. I do a video critiquing her legitimately in a productive way, and a new video, because it's 3 days after 9/11. Like anybody who knows or was watching now can see, like, oh wow, that was 3 days after 9/11. What made her redo that one to give all of that context to what she meant? And it's because she got critiqued productively from the left.
Yeah, because that was like one of that video blew me away. I had friends that described it as like a gut punch.
Go watch the video I did critiquing her when you get a chance. It's like a 10-12 minute video. Go watch it and you'll see, you'll be like, damn, literally, this is verbatim, not verbatim, but like every point that I mentioned in that video, she took into account while shooting this one. And if I didn't, she would have just left it, because it wasn't like, I know she didn't put a lot of thought into it. She just really wanted to put something out to show that she stood, that she's running for fucking president. She has to put something out on 9/11. Has to, especially being the military candidate. And she wasn't thinking a lot about it. And I was explaining to her, like, this is one of those things, you can't do that. You can't just put something out lazily. And because how everybody is, they're looking for an excuse. And with Bernie, I don't treat Bernie any different than I treat Tulsi. I cut Bernie more slack than I cut Tulsi, actually, because I understand he's in a little bit more of a unique position. But anybody who knows me, I critique my candidate and I nitpick my candidate more than I nitpick anybody else's. And once again, that means that Bernie has to be held accountable. You have to push him left, because the last time we had a Democratic socialist in office that we didn't hold accountable or didn't push left, and we didn't keep on him and say, bro, you got to be aware of all these different ways they're going to try to manipulate you. It was FDR. When we allowed FDR to just go on about his business because we thought we were getting what we wanted domestically, before he can make the most significant strides, World War II popped off because GM and all the corporations, GM, Ford, GE, and it's like a huge list of them, funded Nazism. We had Nazi subsidiaries. We actually, those companies sued the United States for bombing their subsidiaries, their manufacturing companies, and all that good shit in their warehouses, and won. They fucking won, bruh. And it's not, this is on record. They fucking won. Because, and people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense, bro. I just told you that after World War II, we fucking crippled Germany's economy. We destroyed their economy. We destroyed their army. They had no weapons. So explain to me where the fuck they got the money, the weapons, and the organizing, the financial backing to organize without help.
Yeah. No, and the families that were instrumental in that are a lot of the same families, excuse me, that are still in power today. A lot of their lackeys and their errand boys are now people like Bill Barr and Elliott Abrams. And also the same families and the same people in positions of power that have been wrapped up in this whole Epstein mess.
Yes. And that's something that doesn't get talked about enough either. And the Epstein shit just kind of like, whew, hit us like a whirlwind, everybody. But we never got to go into just how twisted and weird it was to see them try to make these connections to Trump. I'm like, hold on. So we're going to try and like fashion a connection to Trump, you know, like a significant connection. Not I flew to Mar-a-Lago one time and then I'm completely banned from Mar-a-Lago ever since then. That's actually good with me. I'm fucking fine with that. I'm like, so you saw him once, you realized he was full of shit and you banned him permanently. Great. But we know for a fact that Clinton not only did this, but he did this while he was fucking president multiple times. And no one thinks that's significant in the bro, that's a fucking president. So we're going to call out the fucking governor of New Mexico, but not the former fucking president of the United States?
They let up on Bill Richardson really fucking quick too, man. And as far as I know, to this day, the Zorro Ranch in New Mexico hasn't been raided.
Hey, look, they knew that these motherfucking politicians, they will hit that Mariah Carey high note and sing the moment that you bring them. Because they'll be like, well, they made me to because they were trying to blackmail me. I guarantee it. They'll like, I never wanted to do it. And you keep pointing fingers, you point high enough, you see what happens. Now, it's a whole argument about whether or not Epstein actually committed suicide because the camera went off and, you know, they could have moved that motherfucker out. Like, that's something I fully expect from our government. We have protocols for that type of shit. I know because we have protocols for that type of shit for like special forces and Delta Force. I used to be on Fort Bragg. Like, if we need a guy to disappear, like a special forces or a spy to disappear, we have protocols for that. So like, why the fuck when we had like if this dude was because look once again these motherfuckers will sing their ass off. You try to fuck with them. They said Acosta, why the hell didn't you? Why did you only give him a year? They said above my pay grade. They said he was intelligence. I had nothing to do with this. I didn't want him in power. Like. It was that fucking quick. When it became between him and his career and his job and Epstein and this fucking, you know, whoever's behind him, he sold these motherfuckers out so fast for that job. Like, he didn't care. And that's what happened.
No shit. No, you're absolutely right. And not only would they sing, they would fucking, they'd blow, I mean, they would blow the lid off on fucking, and I have no reason to discount the reporting, fucking almost 100 years of this child rape trafficking racket that has gone on through the highest institutions of power, multiple governments, foreign governments, this government, fucking the mafia, like all kinds of crazy shit. And I had a fucking point to that, and I had like 8 other things going on.
Honestly.
Give me 1 second to collect my thoughts because I just looked at something weird. I'm sorry.
Nah, but
And I do have to wrap it up. But no, I agree with you about the possibility of him being removed. That's been my position the entire time. That it's much more likely that because the narrative says you're allowed to have a conversation about whether or not he died or committed suicide. But as soon as you step outside of that narrative, then you've got to shut that conversation down.
Yeah,
So
and I would even argue that a lot of people aren't even accepting that like limitation. They're like, nah. Like, I mean, people that I know that don't fucking follow shit are looking at this shit because when they saw the names that were attached, which you can't unsee, they're like, bruh, really? They're like, bro, no, like nobody believes the shit. They're like, well, he committed suicide, bro. Either he was murdered or he was moved.
yeah,
those are the only two options.
I think it's much more likely that he was moved, tied to a chair in a Mossad safe house until all of his compromising material was now 100% their compromising material, and then they'll do with them whatever they do to people who get arrested not once but twice.
Exactly. And I will say this because I know we got to wrap up here. Y'all, I'm from the hood, and unfortunately I lived in North Carolina for a long time, so like cannabis is all right in California. It is. That was tobacco country that I was living in, so they're extra hard on marijuana, and I've seen people get their houses ran into for having one too many cars leave their fucking driveway.
Yup.
Too many cars leave their drive. I ain't talking about like 2 police cars pull up, hey, what's going on here? Raided. Kicked in, raided for fucking weed that somebody's mama named Tina with a bob cut is become a millionaire off of right now in Colorado or California. So why the fuck is it that human trafficking can be exponentially increased over the last decade or so? And then when and they pretend like, oh, we care so much about this issue. But real quick question: whenever we have an opioid epidemic, we call it what? An opioid epidemic. We talk about it all the time. It's, one way or the other they handle it. It's opioids are more associated with white people because black people can't afford insurance. So that's what it is. But the crack epidemic, we called it just that, the crack epidemic, and we treated it as such. Even with healthcare, same thing. Climate change, same thing. But we know for a fucking fact that human trafficking, it is the worst that it has ever been, and it is easier to get away with it than it has ever been. And when you tell people, maybe if these elites are connected, we should probably do an investigation, and they're like, that's fucking stupid. That's a conspiracy theory. I'm like, bruh, what? The fact that they are elites probably increases the likelihood of shit like that being true. Like, and that's what people don't understand. But I know why, though. It's uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. I'm operating from the standpoint that I don't believe. I mean, I'm a black man in America, bro. They're like, oh my God, Trump is the most racist president ever. I'm like, pause, double back. Lyndon B. Johnson was literally known as a connoisseur of the N-word. Truman was even worse than Lyndon B. Johnson. Like, we've had countries wage war with our country waged war with other nations just because they weren't Anglo or Western European or white dominant, and they had a black person in power who wanted to socialize shit. We've waged war for that with other presidents. Like, you're not going to convince me that Trump is the worst thing ever happened to this country, as far as I'm concerned, except for Obama, and that's because of the obvious circumstances. Every other president was either racist or close enough. So tell me that.
Bill Clinton had slaves at the fucking governor's mansion in Arkansas, for fuck's sake.
Started Confederate Flag Day, bro. Start a fucking Confederate Flag Day in Arkansas. So like, when you want to tell me some shit like that, bro, no, that's Trump is the least of my worries, when I know I'm operating from a perspective that we've not had a good president in modern history. Jimmy Carter was the closest that we've gotten, but as far as I'm concerned, FDR was an egotist.
CIA director. Like, Jimmy Carter gets to pass on a lot of shit, but the destabilization that happened,
he was bad
with his
Carter doctrine
and his approval,
the Carter doctrine. You got he undermined. He ran defense on George McGovern. A lot of people don't know about that. So like, so even Jimmy Carter, like that's the best we fucking have. Bernie should be considered a centrist at this point. but he's considered progressive just because he isn't an evil asshole. Like that's the only requirement to be a progressive now.
I was trying to explain that to someone just yesterday. Fucking Bernie is center left at best. That's why I have a show. That's why like you have a show. That's why there's a handful of people that do left media that more often than not, or at least will admit that the fucking horse race is rigged, and let's spend a little bit more time talking about who bought the horses and who's paying for the race.
Absolutely. And that shit, and especially after this election season, which I'm sure I'm not gonna say that end of disappointment, because I do believe in speaking positive vibes out into the world. I'm hoping there are weird things lining up that I think the election might not turn out as bad as people might think it will. And the reason why is because I feel like Tulsi is just one of these people that comes around once in a generation. And this is, not only as a supporter, but as a person who's had extensive conversation with her and her family that she has on her campaign. Like, I know that your administration will look like the people you campaign with. I mean, if you don't look any further than Obama, right? So like, yeah. I know that. And when you're keeping your family around, that's who you keep independent media around. That's who you reach out to when you want to break news. That tells me a lot about you, one. But when you combine that with the fact that she gets kept out of the debates and she goes up in the polls, she goes up, like, and then to be honest with you, both debates, she was one exchange away from being completely and totally irrelevant at this point. Yeah. To be honest with you. Yeah. And she severely underperformed in her first debate. She did better in the second debate, but like what put her over the top was that Kamala exchange. And both things were because of those issues that trigger her personally for various reasons. And it just happened to line up like that because she's actually a very shy person. She doesn't like talking over people. She hates that type of shit, but she just couldn't help herself. And look where it got her. So now you got in New Hampshire, she's 6th or 7th. She's beating almost every other candidate. In these, getting like that in Iowa too. And in California, it's her second most popular state next to Hawaii. And if you combine that with the fact that Tulsi, literally, she's never lost an election. And she's always come back from at minimum 20-point deficits at minimum. So when you have to ask yourself, how? At a certain point, she's like, you got to just admit, like, this person has something that's just different. Even when she wasn't as good as she is today, there is something in her that people just kind of naturally gravitate to. And I always tell people, you go to a Tulsi Gabbard town hall, you're a Tulsi voter now. You thought you were voting for somebody else. Nope, you're a Tulsi voter now. I saw somebody from the mainstream media at the debates, because when I went to the debates here in Miami, in between, people come up to you, talk to you, whatever. That's when I was like fucking like cussing, yelling across the room. Tulsi, fuck them up. Stop fucking with me. I was going ham. And she was laughing, but she knew it was like. But the fucking person from MSNBC walks up to her, she says, I love everything you've been saying. Like whispered it to her. Cause like like people are ashamed. Like they're scared.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's crazy. But it's a silent majority. I
really do gotta bounce. I got like
same.
The wife texting me too. So I'm gonna wrap this up. But Niko, I can't thank you so much.
Oh man, loved it.
Let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me on YouTube. Obviously, Niko. Just type in Niko House, Niko, not CO, HOUSE. You can also find me on rockfin.com, which is ROKFIN.com. You can just type in Niko. I'll come up pretty fast there. Dope platform, like a combination of YouTube and Netflix. You can also find me on Twitter, obviously, at Niko, Niko, CSFB. I'll be there.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much for being here today. I appreciate the hell out of it. This has been Slow News Day. My name is Steve Poikinen, and good luck to us all. And we should be out here in just a second.